Distinguished shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask that we please rise for the national anthem. Thank you. Please take your seats. Good morning again, distinguished shareholders, my colleagues on the board of directors, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you to the annual general meeting of UAC of Nigeria PLC. The time is now a minute or two after 10 a.m. The company secretary has informed me that a quorum has been formed and that we can therefore proceed with the business of the meeting. I will now call on Mr. Obong Idiong, the Managing Director of Africa Prudential PLC, our registrars, to confirm the number of proxies received for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the purpose of this meeting, we received a total of 316 proxies, with a total of 1,314,774,801 units of shares, representing 45.62% of the issued share capital of UAC Nigeria PLC. Thank you.
Thank you. I think these are special times, and there is a lot to be grateful for, not least of which is that we seem to be approaching the end of the challenges caused by COVID. And I think that even though that is not our usual custom at UAC AGMs, I think we'll make an exception on this occasion and have Mrs. Adebisi Bakare say a brief opening prayer to commend these proceedings into the hands of the Almighty. Mrs. Bakare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we stand up for opening prayer? Everlasting Father, we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity given to us to be alive this morning. Accept our thanks in Jesus' name. We commit today's meeting unto your hand. We pray, O Lord, that you guide the chairman of the meeting throughout the proceedings of today's meeting, so that at the end of the meeting, we have cause to glorify your holy name. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Bakare. We are still living with COVID-19, and we must therefore still continue to do our best to stay safe. It is in view of these considerations that your company decided to hold this annual general meeting by proxy in line with the guidelines of the Corporate Affairs Commission, having obtained the prior approval of the CAC to do so. Now, although this meeting is being streamed live, this meeting is also being streamed live to enable stakeholders observe the proceedings. Once again, you are all welcome to this meeting, and I acknowledge our stakeholders who are watching this meeting that is being streamed live on our website and also on our YouTube channel. I will now call on the Facilities Manager of UAC House, Mr. Daniel Iriemi, to take us through a safety briefing for the use of this venue.
Distinguished shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the 12th floor of UAC House in the very heart of Central Lagos. There are two exits from the venue of this meeting. This is one, and then that is another. Both lead to the ground floor. The conveniences are by the aisle, and they're clearly marked male restroom and female restroom, so feel free to use any of them. No fire drill has been planned for today, so in case you hear the fire alarm, please be calm and walk towards the exit through the staircase downstairs. The muster point is just in front of the building facing the cathedral. Please wait for further instructions by the fire wardens in the building. Provisions has also been made for hand sanitizers and nose masks. Though the COVID restrictions have been relaxed, it is advisable that we remain vigilant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Iriemi. It is indeed a great pleasure to introduce members of the Board of Directors that are in attendance with me at this meeting. Physically present with us and to my right, immediate right, is the Group Managing Director of your company, Mr. Folashope Ayeshimoju. And to my far right is the Group Finance Director of your company, Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo. Also physically present with us is a non-executive director of your company, Dr. Umaru Alka. On my left, immediate left, is the company secretary of your company, Ms. Ayomipo Way.
Good morning, distinguished shareholders.
And I would also like to introduce myself. My name is Dan Agbo, and by your grace, I chair the board of our company. Thank you very much. The other members of the board who are virtually present are Dr. Vitus Ezinwa, a non-executive director of your company, Mr. Babatunde Kasali, a non-executive director of our company, Mr. Bolaji Odunsi, a non-executive director of our company, I'd also like to introduce everyone to Mrs. Suzanne Iroche, an independent non-executive director of our company. And also to introduce everyone to Mr. Carl Toriola, an independent non-executive director of our company. A special welcome today also to Mr. Halifa Biobaku, a non-executive director of UAC of Nigeria PLC. Also physically present with us today is the chairman of the Statutory Audit Committee, Mr. Olabisi Fayombo. We also have with us today representatives of the following regulators. Mrs. Antonia Ame from the the NGX Regulation Limited, who is joining us virtually. So welcome to her nonetheless. Mrs. Kelechi Luke Azubuike from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, the gentleman sitting over there doesn't look like Mrs. Kelechi Luke Azubuike, but we welcome him nonetheless. Welcome. The Corporate Affairs Commission had informed us that they would not be attending today's meeting and has requested that a report of the meeting should be sent to them. I'd also like to introduce to you representatives of the following: the external auditors, KPMG Professional Services, represented by Mrs. Toyin Gbagi. Our very able registrars, Africa Prudential PLC, represented by Mr. Obong Idiong again. Finally, and most importantly, I wish to acknowledge shareholders that are physically present with us today, namely Mrs. Adebisi Bakare, Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye, and Pastor Samson Olagoke. Welcome, special welcome to you all. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being streamed live and recorded. Should you wish to speak, please indicate by show of hand and wait for the chairman of the meeting to call on you to speak. I would recommend that all speakers at this meeting remain seated while speaking, as the microphones will be brought over to you. In that event, i.e. in the event that you will be speaking, please state your name clearly, and it would be appreciated if you could be as brief as possible, and if you could make your questions as straight to the point as is possible. I would also appreciate it if all mobile phones and similar devices could be put in silent mode if that is not already the case. I plan to lead by example here and check. I'd also like to highlight that the register of directors' shareholding and the record of attendance at board meetings of directors eligible for election are available for viewing at this meeting. Please also note that the requisite information is contained in the annual report. I will now call on the company secretary to read the notice of the meeting. Company secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, distinguished shareholders, ladies and gentlemen. I will now proceed to read the notice convening this meeting. Notice is hereby given that the annual general meeting of UAC of Nigeria PLC will be held at UAC House, 1-5 Odunlami Street, Marina, Lagos, on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022, at 10 a.m. in order to transact the following businesses. Ordinary business. 1. To lay before members the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2021, and the report of the directors, auditors, and audit committee thereon. 2. To declare a dividend. 3. To re-elect the following directors who are retiring by rotation. 1. Mrs. Susan Iroche, and 2. Mr. Carl Toriola. 4. To authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the external auditors for the 2022 financial year. 5. To elect members of the statutory audit committee. 6. To disclose the remuneration of managers of the company. Special business, 7, to fix the remuneration of directors. 8, to approve the appointments of the following directors: A, Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo, and B, Mr. Khalifa Biobako. 9, to consider and, if thought fit, pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution of the company: that a general mandate be and is hereby given, authorizing the company through the directors to enter into recurrent transactions with related parties or companies until reviewed by the company at an annual general meeting. 10, to consider and, if thought fit, pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution of the company: that following proposals by the directors in connection with the dividend to be declared by the company in respect of the year ended 31 December 2021 be and are hereby approved. A, that shareholders entitled to receive cash dividends be offered a right of election to receive ordinary shares in the company instead of cash dividends, and that such new ordinary shares be credited as fully paid, and when issued, shall rank pari passu in all respects with the company's existing ordinary shares. B, that the election to receive ordinary shares instead of cash dividends shall have been exercised by shareholders, on or before June 14, 2022. That the new ordinary shares to be received by shareholders shall be determined by their cash dividend entitlements divided by a reference share price, which reference share price shall be the 10-day average starting on June 8, 2022, of the company's closing share price on the floor of the Nigerian Exchange Group, and D, that further to the above approval, the directors be and are hereby authorized to allot to shareholders who elect to receive ordinary shares in the company in lieu of cash dividends such number of new ordinary shares as shall be determined by the directors in the manner set out in Resolution C above. 10.2, that upon completion of the process for the payment of dividend, including without limitation the allotment of the new ordinary shares to shareholders who elect to receive same, and in compliance with Section 124 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, Number 3 of 2020 as amended, and the Companies Regulations 2021, the shareholders hereby approve the cancellation of all the unissued shares in the company and authorize the directors to take all such lawful steps as may be required by statute and or regulations for implementing the cancellation of the company's unissued shares. 10.3, that the directors be and are hereby authorized to take all such lawful steps, pass all requisite resolutions, and do all such other lawful acts and or things as may be necessary for and or incidental to giving effect to resolutions 10.1 and 10.2 above, and all prior lawful steps taken by the directors in the above regard be and are hereby ratified. 11, to consider and, if thought fit, approve as special resolution of the company that subsequent to the cancellation of all the unissued shares in the share capital of the company in accordance with Resolution 10.2 above, Clause 6 of the Memorandum of Association and Article 5 of the Articles of Association of the company be amended as necessary to reference only the issued shares in the capital of the company, dated the 16th day of May, 2022, By order of the board, Ayomi Bowe, Company Secretary. Distinguished shareholders, with your very kind permission, I would like to take the notes to the notice as read. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Thank you, Ms. Ware. I will now report on the affairs of your company during the year under review. The chairman's statement appears on pages 12 to 14 of the annual report. And in order that we may have sufficient time for questions, I would like, with your kind permission, for us to take the chairman's statement as read.
Taken as read. Granted.
Thank you. I will now invite a representative of KPMG Professional Services to read the auditor's report.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, distinguished shareholders and all the members of the board present, regulators, ladies and gentlemen. Our independent auditor's report is on page 73 and runs through to 78. I read, to the shareholders of UAC of Nigeria PLC, report on the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements. Opinion. We have audited the consolidated and separate financial statements of UAC of Nigeria PLC, the company, and its subsidiaries, together the group, which comprise the consolidated and separate statements of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, the consolidated and separate statements of financial position as at 31st December 2021, the consolidated and separate statements of changes in equity, the consolidated and separate statements of cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated and separate financial statements give a true and fair view of the consolidated and separate financial position of the company and its subsidiaries as at 31st December 2021, and of its consolidated and separate financial performance and its consolidated and separate cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, and in the manner required by the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020, and the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria Act 2011. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with International Standards on Auditing, ISAs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements section of our report. We are independent of the group and company in accordance with the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independence Standards, the ISBA Code, together with the ethical requirements that are relevant to our audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements in Nigeria. And we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with this requirement and the ISBA Code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The key audit matters have been represented and highlighted in the report. Distinguished shareholders, Chair, with your permission, may I proceed to page 78 to take our other report? Thank you very much. Report on other legal and regulatory requirements. Compliance with the requirements of Schedule 5 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020. We have obtained all the information and explanations which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purpose of our audit. In our opinion, proper books of accounts have been kept by the company so far as appears from our examination of those books. The company's statement of financial position and statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income are in agreement with the books of accounts. Signed by Goodluck Obi for KPMG Professional Services, dated 30th March 2022 in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Gbagi. I would I will now invite Mr. Olabisi Fayombo to read the Statutory Audit Committee's report. Mr. Fayombo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished shareholders, report of the Audit Committee to the members of UAC of Nigeria PLC can be seen on page 71 of the report with you. I read. In compliance with Section 404, Subsection 7 of the Commission on Allied Matters Act, 2020, we have reviewed the consolidated and separate audited financial statements of the group and company for the year ended 31st December 2021 and report as follows. A, the accounting and reporting policy of the group and the company are consistent with legal requirements and agreed ethical practices. B, the scope and planning of the external audits are, in our opinion, adequate. C, the internal audit and internal control systems are adequate. And D, the external auditor's management letter was satisfactorily dealt with by management. Signed, Olabisi Fayombo, dated 28th day of March 2022. Other members of the committee who are present virtually are Mr. Matthew Akinlade, Mr. Kenneth Inabike, Mr. Abatunde Kasali, and Mr. Bolaji Odusi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fayombo. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Section 248 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, I hereby declare that a poll will be taken on all resolutions that are presented for consideration at this meeting, with the exception of the resolution for the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee, which election shall be determined by a show of hands. Motions will be moved by me, and seconders of each motion will come from any person present who is a shareholder or who represents a shareholder. I request that those who wish to second motions should please indicate their intention to do so by raising their hands, and I will call on such persons to speak as appropriate. Since this is an annual general meeting by proxy, and the votes on all the proxy forms duly submitted have been collated by the registrars, I would ask the registrars to share the voting results on the resolution upon their introduction for consideration. Let us now proceed with the formal business of this meeting. Distinguished shareholders, the first item on the agenda is to lay before you the annual report and audited financial statements as of December 31st, 2021. I now lay before you the annual report and financial statements of UAC of Nigeria PLC for the year ended 31st December 2021. And I'll be pleased to take your questions regarding the annual report and financial statements. To aid our responses to your questions, may I ask that you refer to the page of the annual report to which your question relates? It would be extremely helpful if you could raise your hand if you have a question and wait until I call on you to speak. And then once called upon to speak, kindly state your name before asking your questions or making your comments. I'd like to start with Pastor Olagoke. Pastor Olagoke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, all the board and management, all regulatory present here, my co-shareholder, good morning. My name is Pastor Olagoke Samson Olusegun. First and foremost, we thank Almighty God for the fruit of the life that He gave us today to be attending this meeting, and then that the meeting is held in our head office here. May Almighty God be with us and guide us. Let's go to the account. First and foremost, this account is historically. I commend our amiable chairman and the board of management for this excellent performance, and our GMD, Mr. Fola Ayesumoju, of our great company by this hardship economic situation in Nigeria and globally. And then by the time of pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic, our company still exists and then still alive. By saying this, page 11. Our great achievement on UAC's revenue grew by 16%, 877 million as a company, and 25%, 101 billion as a group. And also UAC NGX quotation rose by 13% from 725 kobo in December 31, 2020 to 950 kobo in December 31, 2021. Page 13. We have successfully, our company, great company, successfully distributed UPDC rent unit to UACN shareholder, and also UAC now own 100% of UAC Food Limited. Please, a round of applause to our board. Page 13 to 21. Because all the board are working very, very well, we have a successful implementation of the merger and integration of two paint business. Chemical and Allied Product, PSC, Portland Paint, and Product Nigeria PSC. Also successful migration to cloud-based enterprises productivity tools and commencement of the process of upgrading the core IT infrastructure across the group. Page 14 to 19. Our great company also retained a total of 7.4 billion to shareholder in year 2021 through a combination of different and up UPDC range units. Continuation in that page, UAC implemented employee long-time incentive scheme, which will motivate employee and give them a sense of ownership. Page 18. Coalition against COVID-19. COVID, with an additional cash of contribution of 100 million. It's a good job. Page 188. Our great company also, UAC, consistently declared dividend from 2009 to date, a period of 12 years. Please, a round of applause to the board and management, because there are some companies, they don't even bother to pay dividend. But our company, UAC, is consistently pay dividend from year 2009 till up to date. All these boards are doing a wonderful job. Page 34 to 41. All this, when I go through that page, hi, Pastor Lagoke Samson Olusegun, the president of the Impressive Shareholders Association, and all my members in Ibadan, Oyo State, confirm that we have quality, hardworking, vibrant, competent, and reliable board and management with the leadership in subsidiary and associates that will take our company into a greater level. On that page, I also welcome our new director, the two directors, Mrs. Funke and Mr. Khalif Biobaku. I know that women always manage what the husband gives to the woman. Say, maybe he gave me 200 naira, let me manage 100 naira. In case my children we ask for 50 naira to buy biscuit. This is the time we need you to add your experience, your value for the sustainability and productivity and for the growth of our great company, UAC. I pray, Almighty God, that God will give you the wisdom, ability, and understanding that you'll be using in that office to make sure make sure that you give us an excellent performance. Page 24 to 31. I'll be brief. I commend our competent and working lady, our company secretary, Mr. Yomikpo Way, for an excellent job and performance. She's been doing well, very friendly to the shareholders, accommodative, loyal to the board and shareholders, and also very intelligent somebody when it's handle an issue. Please, I urge the board to empower her more to continue perform excellently. And all the staff in our department. On that page also, I didn't comfortable with the company secretary picture. Compare it to the other picture in the report. I want the board to check it. The way the printer just, I'm not comfortable. Check the picture. It's not I'm not comfortable with the picture. Maybe it's the printer devil. See the hand. Please take note. My questions are, what is your plan for sustainability and profitability of our company for the year 2022 and beyond? Sir, how many complaints do you have and how many have we resolved? How did you cope with the issue of piracy? Lastly, I commend our paymaster, African Prudential Registrar. They are doing fantastic job. We received the annual report and account in time and other information. And then I didn't forget all the staff. They are behind this cake we are baking today. Please take good care of the staff because they are very, very important. My chairman, thank you for the opportunity given to me.
Thank you very much, Pastor Samson Olagoke. For your very comprehensive comments and questions. I would now like to call on Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye. I trust that since
my chairman, Opotogo Duly Officer, once again the name is Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye, all the way from Ibadan. Thank you for the opportunity. Despite of insecurity in our nation, naira devaluation, cost of foreign exchange, cost of raw material, regulatory headwinds, you are able to give us excellent results. When I go through the annual reports, I could see that it's well structured, explicit, and is understandable to the layman understanding. And not only that, I would like to commend the CFO based on my profession. When I gone through the annual reports, I couldn't find error. She performed excellently.
So I want you to keep it up. Sincerely appreciate you. And go straight to the reports that's on the financial highlights. The revenue and operating profits, someone has made mention of that. That one is commendable, it's impressive. At this tense economy, at this difficult terrain, at this time of COVID-19 crisis, you are able to present to us wonderful and excellent results. This is a magic one. This is a magic one. We really appreciate you. I appreciate the board and management for being applying necessary strategy to expand and maximize UAC business out of a macroeconomic pressure and COVID-19 crisis. I want to say kudos to you. We want to appreciate you. In spite of uncertainty, what you maximize your strategy, at least to put smile on our face. It's not easy. You have passed through the rigorous steps to put smile on our face. The Lord will increase your capacity to do better than that in the financial year of 2022. I noticed a significant decline in profit for the year by 33%. The rate of increase in expenses is concerned, and management needs to control costs. Admin expenses increased from 7.7 billion to 8.6 billion. Personnel expenses grew by 1.1 billion from 8.5 billion to 9.6 billion. So I want the management to look into that. And when I go through the annual report, I cannot but to appreciate the Department of HR for employing the professional and talented staff that add value to our bottom line to make UAC a futuristic one and a brighter one for Nigeria. We want to appreciate them in that regard. On the governance, on page 13, I observed key leadership changes in group and across subsidiary company. I'm impressed by their envious profile of this individual, that is Mr. Khalifa Bioku, Mrs. Ayomi Kpowe, that's our Able Company Secretary, Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo at UAC, and Mrs. Bolaniwa Okunowo at CAP PLC, among others. See, these are based on their weight of experience. I know that they're going to maximize our profitability. I know that they're going to perform magic one. I know that the excuse of COVID-19 will be denied. And I know that you're going to do something wonderful at this difficult terrain. We all know that the macroeconomic pressure is an excuse to tell us that it is not easy. But from your angle, from the tasks I held of you, I know that you're going to do something wonderful this time around. On page 70, I noticed the introduction of new digital component to the UACN group. I hereby commend the management for this great initiative. Though without an iota of doubt, this will yield long-term benefit to shareholder and UACN group. On page 57 and 58, that's on corporate social investment. I've said that our CSR in 2021 cover health, education, social welfare, youth empowerment, and community development. This is a balanced investment and is commendable. But sir, what I notice here is that all these things which I mentioned is established in Lagos. But from constituency where I come from, I need to fight from them. That's Ibadan. We like to see your hands there. We like to observe your CSR there. So surely, in case you want to ask from which the shareholder that what do you want from Ibadan, don't hesitate to call us. We want to see you there. And I want to say, just keep it up. Just keep it up. Page 135, employee increase. I noticed that our staff increased. We increased in number, and we are able as well. And by doing this, This is a value creation to Nigeria economy at this difficult terrain in which the marketing department, I observed that marketing department used that opportunity to grow our revenue. They applied the necessary strategy to grow our revenue. So I want to appreciate the marketing department, page 52. We all know that a fine and penalty are part of loss and shortage. It's against the profitability. But when I got to the annual report, I could see that we couldn't find we couldn't find any of such. That showed that you are up to task. Please keep it up. We need to commend you. It is not easy. You have a lot of things on your table that can deny you to submit the necessary document to the regulatory authority, but to the fact that you are professional, you are up to task, you are able to submit it at the appropriate time. So kudos to you. Page 163, employee benefit. This area gladdens my mind that you value staff. You value them, and by giving them encouragement and as well add value to their inbuilt talent, so that it will be easier for them to inject their inbuilt ability to maximize in the area of our operation, so as to maximize our profitability. I sincerely appreciate you in that regard. I sincerely appreciate you. Let me quickly go to the questions so as to give others to make comments. One, I noticed that the finance cost increased by 194%. What is the group doing to ensure that its interest expenses are minimized? I noticed that the group made a loss from the associate company, MD and the UPDC, which affected group profitability. What is the plans to return these companies to the profitability? Why the sundry expenses increased by 74% from 176 million in year 2020 to 305 million in year 2021. How do we manage energy crisis with this current national epileptic power issued and the high cost of diesel? Lastly, cash and cash equivalent decline by 13 billion. What is driving it? So I want to submit to appreciate the board and management and the staff that baked this cake. May you continue to work stronger. And at the same time, to appreciate our effective, resilient, proactive, productive, accessible, amiable company secretary, Mrs. Ayomi Kwawe. Based on our enviable profile, we've known her in the capital market. It's been a long time. She's energetic, and I could see that during our time, there's a consistent progress in UAC. So that shows that our advice is commensurate with the board and management standard. So you just keep it up, my sister. May you continue to work stronger, and the Lord will give you the ability to perform beyond expectation. From a angle, from the constituency which I'm representing, and also the shareholder at large, we're going to maximize our relationship so as to enhance our sustainability and profitability. On the final note, I want to say a very big thanks to you. Congratulations to UAC. Congratulations to eminent shareholder. Congratulations to the distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Well, I wish every one of us safe journey to our respective home. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you.
Thank you, Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye, for your very insightful and comprehensive comments and questions. I would now like to call on Mrs. Adebisi Bakare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All protocol duly observed. My name is Mrs. Bisi Bakare. I will go straight to the annual report of an account. I will start on page 11, where we have results at a glance, because that is the reason why we are here today. So we have to talk about the page, results at a glance. Of course, this is a very good result, but I believe there is still room for improvement. Our revenue grew by 25% from 81.4 billion in the previous year to 101.4 billion in 2021. That is the group accounts. Operating profit also grew by 50% from 3.3 billion to 4.9 billion. 4.9 billion, almost 5 billion profits. This is a great one, though the profits before tax and profit after tax declined by 19% and 33% respectively. But nevertheless, Mr. Chairman, like I said earlier, this is a good result considering the environment we are operating. But my concern here is, how do we improve on this account? How do we sustain this profitability? The sustainability is key here. Page 10. We have Mr. Biggs on this page. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask that, is Mr. Biggs still functioning? I want to know, because I noticed that almost all our outlets are already taken over by our competitor. So I want to know how far about Mr. Biggs. Page 13. Leadership changes. I welcome all the new directors. I wish them a successful tenure. I'm also using this opportunity to welcome our new company secretary, Ms. Ayomi Powe. I call her Iron Lady because she's wearing many caps. So I wish you well. Almighty God will give you strength to do your job. Also, I wish all our retired directors best of luck in their future endeavors. I'm going to take pages 14, 24, and 29. Pages 14, 24, and 29 together. That is why we are here today. That is on the dividend and election for shares instead of cash dividend. Mr. Chairman, as an investor, sir, I think we are not being fair to all our shareholders in this respect. The reason why I'm saying this is because of the shareholders in the rural areas. How are we sure they are going to get this notice, this resolution, before the deadline, June 14? So I want the board to look at the date of the closure of this resolution, because I know or I doubt if 50% of shareholders will get this resolution before June 14, that is deadline. So I want the board to look at it very well. Though the intention is very good, for me, I prefer the shares, and I believe that most of the shareholders will also prefer the shares. But any shareholders that don't receive this, or they didn't fill the form for the shares, that means you are going to pay dividend to them, and they might not like it. So I want the board to look at it. Page 18. Technology advances for the group. Mr. Chairman, I noticed that we spent about 2 billion, or we invested about 2 billion on technology, and this is expected to go live in July 2022. My question is, what is the progress report on this laudable project? It's very good, but what is the progress report on it? Pages 46 to 49. That is on the board and board committee meeting attendance. This is very good. It's highly commendable. But my concern is on Mr. Toriola. He needs to improve on his board meetings. I noticed that he attended only 3 meetings out of the 6 meetings. This is not good enough. Page 52. Sorry, someone have talked about that. Lastly, page 150 and page 133. Personnel expenses. Under it, we have directors' emoluments. Mr. Chairman, directors' emoluments moved from 632.3 million to 784.9 million. This is an increase of 152 million within a year. I think as an investor, I need explanation on this. Why directors' emolument increased by over 152 million in a year. Once again, thank you for the opportunity given to me. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Bakare. And thanks to everyone else, Pastor Lagoke and Comrade Duguntoye, for your earlier questions. Now, if there are no other questions, I would now like to ask the Group Managing Director and the Group Finance Director to respond to the questions that are based on our audited financial statements. There are 1 or 2 questions that I would, particularly one that I will comment on before I hand over a number of the specific questions to the Group Managing Director and the Group Finance Director. And the main question I'd like to address is Mr. Carl Toriola's attendance at meetings. One of the things that we try to do in UAC is to try and provide our directors with as much predictability as we can in terms of the dates and times of meetings, but it's not always possible. Sometimes there are meetings that have to be called where we're all scrambling, looking at our calendars, and we just have to try and make accommodations in order to attend these meetings at short notice. So at least one of those meetings that Mr. Toriola was unable to attend was the meeting that was called at short notice. But even if you discount that, it is clear that his attendance at meetings was not as good as the attendance of other directors. This has been noted, this has been discussed with Mr. Toriola, and Mr. Toriola has committed that in the current financial year and obviously beyond that, the shareholders will see a significant improvement in his attendance. Okay. In terms of the directors' emoluments, some of these emoluments are linked to the underlying performance of the business, but I will let the Group Managing Director discuss that in a little bit more detail. Mr. Ayeshomoju, I think I can hand over the other questions to you and Mrs. Ijaya Oladipo now.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, distinguished shareholders. Please permit me to respond seated. I don't have a portable microphone, and I want to make sure you can hear me. I think the first set of questions were from Pastor Olagoke, and there were some questions and commendations. There was commendation for Africa Prudential. We echo those commendations, and for efforts to take care of staff. We think people are our most important component of the business, and we try. The three questions were around piracy, complaint resolution, and plans for sustainability and profitability. Oddly enough, two of them are linked. As a group, we think that one of our biggest strengths is the brands that we represent, from Mr. Biggs to Gala to Santex, Caplux, Vital Feeds, and so on and so forth. And in terms of sustainably driving profitability, we spend a lot of time investing behind those brands so that consumers demand our products. To support a brand, aside from the nice billboards that we put out, the most important thing that we have to try and put out is consistent quality and availability. And so we work very, very hard with our teams to ensure that we put out quality products and that are available in the market, and then support these with sufficient advertising and communication to our customers. It's a very difficult environment in terms of cost inflation. We've seen raw material prices double across most of our businesses, and so we try to ensure that we price appropriately to try to recoup a profit. So it's not very fancy, but if we do these things consistently and we do them well, we see growth and we see profitability begin to come through. As regards complaints, I will split them in two. There are complaints that are governance in nature, and we have a whistleblowing line that goes to KPMG. The details are across our offices, and then stakeholders, employees, fortunately, very infrequently call that line to register concerns, and those concerns are thoroughly investigated and reported to the board risk committee. And then there are customer complaints, and those go through to the customer service lines of every business, whether it's I'm not happy with a particular piece of Gala or a bucket of paint. We investigate every single one of these complaints and ensure that we make the consumer whole. But crucially, what we do is that we maintain benchmarks. We sell millions of units of products every single day. And so we try to ensure that complaints are fractions of percentages. And when we see that these are taken up, we begin to investigate the root cause as to why the complaints are taken up. But fortunately, we don't have a concern around the degree of complaints. And piracy, we find when you have such valuable brands, sometimes people try to mimic the product. We find that the kerosene to the fire of privacy is scarcity. If product is available, then people typically would buy from source. So the first point I mentioned in terms of product availability is crucial. We also work very hard with regulatory authorities and brand enforcement to ensure that where we do identify cases of piracy, we come down very hard on these pirates. I think that those are the questions and comments from Pastor Olagoke. Comrade Oguntoye also had some questions, recommendations, and commendations. I think the first one had to do with the quality of the annual report. I think thank you to the Finance Director and the Company Secretary. They put the materials together. There was a comment to management to keep an eye on costs, very well noted. We're in a highly inflationary environment, but we take the feedback and we try to keep or to increase the focus that we already have on this particular item so that we ensure that our revenues flow through to profitability. There was also the comment on HR. The comment on CSR is noted, although I will clarify that we don't do only in Lagos. We're a company with national presence, and therefore our CSR presence is indeed spread across. The comment is noted. Again, there was a comment about no regulatory infractions. Again, thanks to this Finance Director and the Company Secretary. They are the ones who handle most of the regulatory filings. On finance costs increasing by 174%, the bulk of our borrowing, I would say more than 90% of our borrowing, has to do with our animal feeds businesses. These businesses, every buying season, buy agricultural commodities which they convert and sell in the subsequent year. The key commodities are maize and soya beans. The price of maize and soya beans have both at least doubled in the last 12 months. So to buy the same amount of commodity, you need twice the amount of money, and that's why you see the level of borrowing go up and the finance costs go up. The next question has to do with MDS and UPDC and plans to return to profitability. I think it was Pastor Olagoke who commented that the accounts are historical. We're lucky that in Q1, both of these companies actually delivered profits, so the plans are materializing. At UPDC, there's been tireless effort working with our partners, Custodian Investments, and there's a very clear strategy of development and sale in a short time cycle. There's a development going on called Pinnock Prime. I would urge you to all check it out, and that's gaining good traction and is what has driven the shift in the company's profitability, and we hope to replicate it. At MDS, there's an increased focus on dedicated freight. So there are very many large businesses in Nigeria that require a counterpart of MDS's quality to guarantee them availability of transport. MDS has signed up a number of those contracts in the last 6 to 12 months, and we're seeing that also begin to drive profitability. There was a question of sundry expenses, which Funke would address. There's a question of cash going down by 13 billion, which Funke will address. So the final one I will address from Comrade Oguntoye is around energy crisis, or how we deal with it. We approach this in two ways. One is reduction in the amount of energy that we consume, and so across the board we measure the units of energy per output of product. It's part of our sustainability agenda, but it ends up driving profitability. So we do measure how many units of energy go into producing each bottle of Swan water and bowl of ice cream. And the second is mix. So there's the grid, there are diesel generators. We've now increasingly focused on solar. We have 2 factories now that have installed solar and energy generating units, and a third one is underway. And at MDS, there's actually a pilot going on to see whether we can use solar for our various warehouses. Again, this is linked to sustainability because there's less carbon emission from solar, but it also assists with the mix. And for where we can, for a new development we're considering, there's a big focus on ensuring gas is available. And frankly, even where there's no piped gas, if I take our plant in Onitsha, we're using liquefied gas, so you transport a cylinder. So in summary, it's reduction and mix. If you have grid, diesel, solar, and gas, we hopefully get the best costs and availability. So Funke would address the question about cash and sundry expenses, but I'll just tackle Mrs. Bakare's other questions. Mrs. Bakare notes the room for improved performance. We agree, and we would double our efforts to drive further performance. I think there was a question about profitability and sustainability, which I think I've addressed with Pastor Olagoke's question. Is Mr. Biggs functioning? I smiled when I heard this one. It is, for me, one of the more exciting things that is going on in the group. As you may know, we had a 100% franchise model for Mr. Biggs, and there were challenges for whatever reason in maintaining standards across that business, across 100+ outlets. A new strategy was developed and a new management team appointed to the company just over a year ago. And the idea is to roll out corporate stores which we control. There were 0 about 2 years ago, 5 in 2020, 11 last year, and this year there will be about 21 of them. So we're doubling the number of stores every year. I strongly urge you to check one of those stores out. I was at the one at Ajao Estate a couple of weeks ago. Extremely exciting, and I'm spending all of Saturday with the team. We opened one in Solere, a new Debonair store about a week or so ago. So I strongly urge you to walk into one of the new Mr. Biggs stores. Excellent product, excellent experience. So we're still functioning, very excited about it, and growing it very quickly. And there's a long way to go, but we're growing it very quickly. On the dividend elections, the point I would like to make is that the notices went out quite a while ago, and we have reasonable confidence that working with our partners, Africa Prudential, we did all possible to ensure that the information was widely disseminated. But the point is noted, and we'll speak to the registrars to see if there's anything else that we can and should do in that regard. On the SAP project, we do plan to go live in just over a week. Funke and I were on a call at 9 o'clock this morning. After we walked upstairs and had to dash. Okay. That's what we had to go and do. Extremely difficult, extremely complex. There are a few more bends in the road, but we feel that we will get there in the next week or so. Going live is a first step. We'll have a period called hypercare for 3 months, and then we would optimize the project, but that's still very much on course. The chairman has addressed the question about directors' attendance, and the final one was around the directors' emolument. I would say that no individual director got an increase in base remuneration, none, whether NED or executive director. There are two things that will influence the changes. One is variable components of compensation that are tied to specific KPIs, and the second is non-cash. If somebody has a travel allowance or so, and the cost of that varies, it will affect the variability. But no director got a change in the structure of their compensation. It's variable components and non-cash components. I think that was it, and I'll hand over to Funke to discuss the sundry expenses and the cash flow.
Thank you, Fola, and good morning, distinguished shareholders. There was a comment around cash and why it declined by 13 billion. I would attribute this to 4 things. One was working capital, so to support inventory purchases. The second, around strategic initiatives. It was mentioned that we did acquire an increased stake in UAC Foods Limited, so some cash went towards that. The third element was around capital expenditure, so investments in our businesses. And then the fourth would be dividend paid to shareholders. So those were the 4 key things driving the cash. The second question was around our sundry expenses and the increase by 74% to 305 million. Sundry expenses are by nature expenses that are miscellaneous and incurred in the ordinary course of business. And I think the prior year was a year that was impacted by COVID-19, so we had reduced business activities. And what you'd naturally expect is that as you have increased operations, your expenses increase in line with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayeshimoju. Thank you, Funke. I think that with those responses and with the kind permission of the shareholders, we can now proceed to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is the declaration of a dividend. Section 426, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act empowers a company in general meeting to declare a dividend in respect of any year or other period on the recommendation of the directors. By a resolution of the Board of Directors passed on March the 29th, 2022, the directors resolved to recommend a dividend of 65 kobo per share to the shareholders. In view of this, I hereby move as follows, i.e., that a dividend of 65 kobo per ordinary share of 50 kobo each be approved for payment from the company's retained earnings to the shareholders whose names appear in the register of members as of June 7th, 2022, subject to appropriate withholding tax. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pastor Olagoke Samson Olusegun. I second that motion.
Thank you, Pastor Olagoke. I now put the motion to the meeting. Registrars, would you kindly announce the results of the poll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the declaration of dividend, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the declaration of dividend. Thank you.
On the basis of the results just announced by the registrars, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is the re-election of retiring directors. In accordance with Section 285 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, at the annual general meeting in every year, 1/3 of the directors for the time being shall retire from office and be eligible for re-election. The directors retiring by rotation and who, being eligible, have presented themselves for re-election are Mrs. Suzanne Iroche and Mr. Carl Toriola. I hereby move that Mrs. Suzanne Iroche, who is retiring by rotation and who, being eligible, offers herself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Would someone be kind enough to please rise and second the motion?
My name is Mrs. Adebisi Bakare. I second the motion.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bakare. I now put the motion to the meeting. Registrar, I'd be grateful if you could announce the result of the poll.
For the resolution to approve the re-election of Mrs. Susan Iroche as the director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Registrar. On the basis of the results just announced, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. I hereby move that Mr. Carl Toriola, who is retiring by rotation and who, being eligible, offers himself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Would someone be kind enough to please rise and second the motion?
Hi, Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye, hereby second the motion.
Thank you very much, comrade. Registrars, I'd be grateful if you could announce the results of the voting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the resolution to approve the re-election of Mr. Carl Toriola as the director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the re-election. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edio. I hereby declare that the motion to re-elect Mr. Carl Toriola has been duly carried. The next item on the agenda is to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. Sections 238 and 408 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act require that the remuneration of the external auditors be fixed by the company in a general meeting or in such a manner as the company may determine in the general meeting. I hereby move that the directors be and are hereby authorized to fix the remuneration of the auditors for the year ending December 31st, 2022. Would somebody be kind enough to please rise and second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pastor Olagoke Samson Olusegun. I so second that motion.
Thank you, Pastor. I would now like to put the motion to the meeting. Registrar?
For the resolution to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the external auditors for the year 2022 financial year, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the shares of the votes cast by proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ediong. On the basis of the results just announced by the registrar, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee. Section 404, subsection 3 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 provides that the Statutory Audit Committee shall consist of 5 persons made up of 3 members and 2 non-executive directors. The directors nominated to represent the board on the Statutory Audit Committee are Mr. Bolaji Odunsi and Mr. Babatunde Kasali. The company secretary has confirmed that a total of 3 valid nominations representing the shareholders were received within the statutory time limit, namely nominations for Mr. Olabisi Fayombo. Mr. Fayombo is here with us. Mr. Matthew Akinlade and Mr. Nwosu Nnabike Kenneth. Since the 3 shareholders' nominees are unopposed, I hereby move that they have been validly elected as members of the Statutory Audit Committee. What this means is that the following persons shall be the members of UAC of Nigeria PLC's Statutory Audit Committee, i.e., Mr. Olabisi Fayombo, representing the shareholders, Mr. Matthew Akinlade, also representing the shareholders, Mr. Nwosu Nnabike Kenneth, also representing the shareholders, Mr. Bolaji Odunsi, non-executive director of UAC of Nigeria PLC, and Mr. Babatunde Kasali. I think we can spare them a round of applause. Thank you. Congratulations again. And thank you for all your hard work over the years. Thank you. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is the disclosure of the remuneration of the managers of the company. Sections 238 and 257 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 provides that the remuneration of the managers of the company shall be disclosed to members at the annual general meeting. The remuneration of managers is disclosed in Note 8, Sub F, Sub Roman I, on page 134 of the annual report, and I'd like to draw your attention to the same. That brings us to the end of the ordinary business of the meeting, and I would now like us to proceed to the special business of this meeting. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is to fix the remuneration of the directors. Section 293 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act provides that the remuneration of the directors is determined by the company in general meeting, and such remuneration is deemed to accrue from day to day. Given that I am an interested party, I will hand over this particular segment of the proceedings to the Group Managing Director to move the relevant motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I hereby move that the aggregate remuneration of the directors of the company be fixed at 106,580,000 naira for the 2022 financial year. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
My name is Mrs. Bakari. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Bakare. I now put the motion to the meeting. Registrar, kindly announce the result of the poll.
For the resolution to fix the remuneration of directors, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,478,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried.
Thank you, Mr. Ayeshimoju. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is the appointment of directors. In accordance with Section 273 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, members of the company at the annual general meeting may appoint new directors. The directors whose appointments are subject to the approval of members at this meeting are Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo and Mr. Khalifa Biobaku, and their respective biographical details are contained in the annual report. Mrs. Ijaya Oladipo is right here. I was looking towards the screen for her image, but she's right here. And Mr. Biobaku is joining us. Oh, there they are. I hereby move that the appointment of Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo as a director of the company be and is hereby approved. Before I take a vote on this, I would like to say that having Mrs. Ijaya Oladipo join us as a director has actually been a real pleasure. If you recall, as of the last annual general meeting, she was our CFO and not yet on the board. Joining us as a director, I think, reflects two things. One, UAC's commitment to elevating people that are deserving of elevation. It's also a reflection of our firm commitment to improving the diversity of representation on the board of directors. So Mrs. Ijaya Oladipo is doubly welcome on both those counts. The other thing I would comment on is that you may have noticed from their images that they're both a little younger than me. And so it also achieves the objective of bringing down the overall age of your board of directors. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I, Comrade Lawrence Oguntoye, vehemently second that motion.
Thank you. Registrars?
For the resolution to approve Mrs. Funke Ijaya Oladipo as the director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of votes cast by proxies voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against her appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. The next resolution for consideration is the appointment of Mr. Halifa Biobaku. I hereby move that the appointment of Mr. Halifa Biobaku as a director of the company be and is hereby approved. Would someone please rise and second the motion? Pastor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again. My name is Pastor Lagoke Samson Olusegun. I second that motion.
Thank you, Pastor. Registrar?
For the resolution to approve Mr. Khalifa Biobaku as the director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of votes cast by proxies voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the company, through the directors, to enter into recurrent transactions with related parties. I hereby move that a general mandate be and is hereby given, authorizing the company, through the directors, to enter into recurrent transactions with related parties or companies until reviewed by the company at an annual general meeting. Would someone please rise and second the motion? Mrs. Bakare?
Mrs. Bisi Bakare, I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Bakare. Registrar?
For the resolution to approve a general mandate authorizing the company through the directors to enter into recurrent transactions, related parties or companies, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxies voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Registrar. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Distinguished shareholders, the next item on the agenda is to approve proposals recommended by the directors in connection with the dividend declared by the company in respect of the year ended December 31st, 2021. The directors have recommended for shareholders' approval a combination of scrip dividend election scheme and share cancellation as the most optimal and suitable options to ensure compliance with the new directives of the Corporate Affairs Commission. This recommendation is in line with the notice issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission titled Public Notice, Existing Companies and the Requirements of Issued Share Capital under the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, that was dated April 16, 2021, and is also in compliance with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 as amended and the CAC Regulations 2021, which mandates that all existing companies incorporated in Nigeria must ensure that there are no unissued shares existing in their capital, in their share capital by December 31st, 2022. Now, the scrip dividend will give interested shareholders the option of electing to receive new ordinary shares from the unissued shares of the company instead of receiving a dividend in cash. An explanatory memorandum on the scrip dividend election scheme is on pages 29 and 30 of the annual report. In view of this, I hereby move A, that shareholders entitled to receive cash dividends be offered a right of election to receive ordinary shares in the company, i.e. new ordinary shares, instead of cash dividends, and that such new ordinary shares be credited as fully paid, and when issued, that such shares shall rank pari passu in all respects with the company's existing ordinary shares. B, that the election to receive ordinary shares instead of cash dividends have been exercised by shareholders as at June 14, 2022. C, that the new ordinary shares to be received by shareholders shall be determined by their cash dividend entitlements divided by a reference share price, which reference share price shall be the 10-day average starting on June 8, 2022 of the company's closing share price on the floor of Nigerian Exchange Group. And D, that further to the above approval, the directors be and are hereby authorized to allot to shareholders who elect to receive ordinary shares in the company in lieu of cash dividends such number of new ordinary shares as shall be determined by the directors in the manner set out in Resolution C above. Would someone please rise and second this motion?
I, Comrade Lawrence, once again second that motion.
Thank you. I now put the motion to the meeting. Registrar?
For the resolution to approve the proposals by the directors in connection with the dividend declared by the company in respect of the year ended 31 December 2021, the result of the poll is as follows. 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. On the basis of those results, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Having approved the scrip dividend election scheme, I will now proceed to the cancellation of the remaining unissued shares as recommended by the directors. An explanatory memorandum on the proposed cancellation of unissued shares is on pages 30 and 31 of the annual report. I hereby move that as follows, i.e., that upon completion of the process for the payment of dividends, including without limitation the allotment of the new ordinary shares to shareholders who elect to receive same, and in compliance with Section 124 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, number 3 of 2020 as amended, and the Companies Regulations 2021, the shareholders hereby approve the cancellation of all of the unissued shares of the company and authorize the directors to take all such lawful steps as may be required by statute and or regulations for implementing the cancellation of the company's unissued shares. I also move that the directors be and are hereby authorized to take all such lawful steps, pass all requisite resolutions, and do all such other lawful acts and or things as may be necessary for and or incidental to giving effect to resolutions so mentioned, and all prior lawful steps taken by the directors in the above regard be and are hereby ratified. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pastor Lagoke Samson Olusegun. I second that motion.
Thank you. I now put the motion to the meeting.
For the resolution to approve the cancellation of all unissued shares of the company, the result of the poll is as follows. 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ediong. On the basis of the results just announced, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Distinguished shareholders, in view of the resolutions just approved in connection with the share cancellation and scrip dividend, it is necessary for us to amend the memorandum and articles of association of the company. I hereby move that subsequent to the cancellation of all of the unissued shares in the share capital of the company, in accordance with the resolution so passed, that Clause 6 of the Memorandum of Association and Article 5 of the Articles of Association of the company be amended as necessary to reference only the issued shares in the share capital of the company. Would someone please rise and second the motion? Mrs. Bakare.
My name is Mrs. Bisi Bakare. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Bakare. I now put the motion to the meeting. Registrar.
For the resolution to approve the amendment of the Memorandum of Articles of the Memorandum and Articles of Association of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 1,314,474,801 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. There is no vote against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. On the basis of the results just announced, I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished shareholders, this concludes all the items on the agenda for this annual general meeting. I would like to thank you for your participation in this meeting, your usual cooperation, and your continued interest in the affairs of your company. I would in particular like to acknowledge and thank our stakeholders who, notwithstanding the fact that they are not physically present at the meeting, have taken the time to follow today's proceedings online. Thank you all very much. I would now like to declare this meeting closed and would ask that we all rise for the national anthem.